All right, I want to look a little bit at rabbit starts. So to start us off, we've got our wind in the middle direction, so this black arrow here, and we've got a mark. Usually you have a mark for the rabbit to round, but sometimes we can try rabbit starts without the rabbit rounding anything. This is a nice way to make it slightly more simple. So the rabbit rounds the mark, and then you have to cross behind the rabbit as close as you can with as close to full speed as you can. So it's easy to get too far forwards, too close to the rabbit, or too far back and miss the rabbit. So I want to talk about some strategies you can use to sort of visualize these angles and this distance. So the basic assumption with rabbits is that they are sailing the same speed that you are. So if you're significantly slower than the person who's chosen as the rabbit, you'll have to take that into account, and if you're significantly faster. But that's usually less of a problem because you can get to the rabbit in time. So if the rabbit sails 1 pen cap in distance, then you don't want to be more than 1 pen cap away from the rabbit. So if you are here, or let's use a more visible marker. If you are here and the rabbit sails 1 pen cap, sails to here, you can also sail 1 pen cap and you end up here. So you don't make the rabbit. So you can't be at this dot. You want to be at that line that you couldn't see before. You want to be here or closer to the mark to make the rabbit. So let's do a couple more of these examples. If the rabbit sails to here and you're going to cross the rabbit here, then again you could be anywhere closer than the length of this pen, but you don't want to be further than the length of the pen. And it's the same again. Let's go 2 pen lengths, or maybe, 2. So 1, 2 here, and then on your other close hauled angle, 1, 2. So you can see what I'm getting at here, hopefully, is that there is a line perpendicular to the wind that you don't want to be behind when the rabbit rounds the mark. If the rabbit rounds the mark and you're behind this line, unless you can sail faster than the rabbit, you're going to miss the rabbit. So this is just a no-go zone below this line. Another problem comes, so the rabbit is technically a starting mark, and there's I think it's written in the preamble to the mark room section of the rule book, where it says that mark room does not apply at a starting mark when you're approaching the starting mark in order to round. And that's almost a direct quote. So that means that if the rabbit's coming along, I'm going to make the rabbit much bigger for a second, and this boat here, let's call them 1, has timed it perfectly so that as the rabbit gets here, this boat gets there. So this boat number 1 here has timed it perfectly to duck the rabbit. This boat up here, number 2, is not allowed to bear off and call for room. That would be like trying to call for room at the committee end of a start line. So this is not allowed. So what 2 has to do is slow down and then cross behind the rabbit when the rabbit catches up, or when the rabbit is here. So 2 can't bear off and accelerate and call for room. 2 has to wait until the rabbit comes. So there's 2 ways of waiting. One way of waiting is let your sail out and then pull it back in. But it's hard to accelerate, so you want to do that early. You want to let the sail out a little bit too much and then sheet in and accelerate as fast as you can so that you cross the rabbit at full speed. Cross the back corner of the rabbit at full speed. You don't want to be trying to build your speed back up as you cross the rabbit. Otherwise, you will be here and the boat that crossed the rabbit at full speed will be here. That's a classic lee bow position, so you'll get sucked down. You won't do well here. So another way of wasting this extra speed that 2 is going to have, because they have to slow down and wait for the rabbit to get to them, is for 2 to head up and luff into irons. And as they head up, the rabbit moves forward and then bear off a little bit past close hold for a nice acceleration, and then try to cross the rabbit as the rabbit gets here. So luffing up into the wind, bearing off, and then accelerating around the back of the rabbit is a nice way to go, because then if you can cross the back of the rabbit after a nice acceleration up to full speed, not only will you be level with the red boat, you will have opened up this distance. So if you can luff up, this boat continues to sail on close hauled, you gain some separation, so it's you're less likely to get lee bowed. And then if you bear off soon enough and round this like a mark, because it is a mark, it's a starting mark, if you round this, bear off and head up and pump the boat flat, you can open up a little bit of distance here, and you should still be on the same ladder rung. The rabbit will now be here, assuming everyone is moving the same speed. You should still be on the same ladder rung because the rabbit was moving upwind at the same close hauled angle at the same speed. And as we know from our local racing, everything changes when there's a gust or a huge lull that the rabbit sails into. But for now, just taking a square rabbit start, and now I want to, or a rabbit start with reliable wind, but now I want to also think about, so we've talked about being late for the rabbit, I talked about being early for the rabbit and how you can waste your, if you come early, you can waste that speed by letting your sail out, or you can convert it into height for a second and use a little bit of it to get some separation. But I also wanted to talk about wind shifts and uncertainty, because that happens all the time, especially at MKS where we use a lot of rabbit starts. So if this purple dotted line is the median wind, at that point this red dotted line is the safe line to go on. Now if the wind shifts drastically like this, which actually does happen, then the rabbit will come around the mark and sail at this angle. And the safe place to be, 90 degrees to that, is going to be down here. So now actually this boat can make the rabbit, because the rabbit isn't pointing as high. That doesn't mean you should try to start down here, because if that shift doesn't happen, you're in trouble. But if you are here, ready for the rabbit to just cross your bow and accelerate, if the rabbit doesn't head up as much as you're expecting, you're now in a lot of trouble, because the rabbit comes here, is pointing below your transom, and you don't have time to bear off unless there's no one else around, which would be strange. You don't have time to bear off and then duck them. So you're basically over the line early if you're here. So one of the tips that I was giving people at our last training session is to stay up to stay above the line perpendicular to the wind, so staying above this red line. The other tip I was giving was to stay away from the rabbit. So then if you set up over here and you notice the rabbit is pointing here, even if there's a whole bunch of other boats, you have time. You have the amount of time, you have 1, 2, 2.5 pen lengths of time. So you can probably tack, come around and get ready. That's, you still have a half a pen length to burn. And you're sailing faster when you're sailing downwind. So it's safer to start further upwind and further away from the rabbit. So this hopefully demonstrates why it's safer to set up further away from the rabbit. If you're over here, there could be another boat who's set up perfectly. If you're here, this boat is not going to accommodate you. They're not going to let you sort of get in there. This boat's going to say no. So you're basically out of luck over early. You could try to pass in front of the rabbit, but then this boat's going to say starboard. So you're basically out of luck here. So very dangerous to be close to the mark and high up. But it's also dangerous to be close to the mark and low down. This boat's not even going to make it if it's square, if the course is square. This boat was going to have, you know, a finger width to accelerate, but because the rabbit only headed up to the blue line instead of the purple line, now they don't have any time to accelerate. So they basically have to let their sail luff until the rabbit has passed them, then pull in their sail. Whereas a boat who's given themselves a bit more space here can accelerate, and so after the rabbit, you'll be down like this. On a lower ladder rung. So it's dangerous to set up too close to the rabbit in shifty conditions there. Of course, you want to do this if you need to get left. If the tactics on the course are that you have to get left, you gotta take these chances over here. Now, the other situation that I wanted to show, let's erase this right-hand shift and draw in the left-hand shift. So let's try to get 45 degrees to that for our approximate, rabbit angle. And this is one of the things everyone hates to see. The rabbit comes around the mark and just keeps heading up and heading up and heading up and heading up. And you're like, oh my gosh, the rabbit is going to be a long way away from me by the time I get there. So this safe line was only the safe line for the square wind. So I'll erase that. This purple line, maybe I'll just keep it as reference. This was the line you expected the rabbit to sail, but there was a left-hand shift. So now the safe line perpendicular to the wind is over here. So, but when you notice this boat sees this boat round up, then by the time this boat has sailed 1 pen length or 1 and a little bit pen length, be there. This boat 1 and a little bit pen length, they're going to be really close. I think the only reason they make it is because of the 1 boat length that is the rabbit's boat length. So this boat might just have made it even though they're below the safe line. This boat will not make it. This boat will make it. This boat will not make it. Because this, let's say that's 2 pen caps worth. This boat sails 2 pen caps forward, and they end up here as the rabbit is here. You think, oh, that's only 1 boat length. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that the next boat is going to not be a boat length behind. So what ends up happening in a competitive fleet is that if you're a boat length behind, these are all the other boats, and you are here. You know how this ends. You're lee-bowed by this boat, you can't head up, or you get rolled by that boat. Basically, you just have to tack out. You're in trouble. You live there as long as you can and hope that this boat bails out so that you can tack with them. So it's really important. That last boat length to the rabbit is very important, and so is hitting the rabbit, not hitting the rabbit, crossing the transom of the rabbit at full speed. So thinking about this safety line perpendicular to the wind, and the anticipated line, So maybe I'll draw the original safety line from the wind direction we were anticipating. So these boats thought they were safe, but they're actually close to missing the rabbit. This boat definitely misses the rabbit, even though they thought they were safe. So again, being further to windward and further away from the rabbit, this is sort of the safest place to be. Because if you have the rabbit point surprisingly high, you can sail and still make it. If the rabbit points surprisingly low, which was our blue line from before, somewhere over here, pretty close to our safety line actually, then you have time to bear away and fix your situation. So you have options if you're up here. It's safe up here. The only time that that this is a bad idea is if the left-hand side of the course is favored, and you need that. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk about. The other thing, this isn't just a rabbit start concept. Thinking about rabbit starts is helpful for upwind sailing when you're trying to tell if you're going to tack or cross, if you're going to cross someone or they're going to cross you. And at the start, so let's say you have a tough start in a very competitive fleet, and there's a bunch more boats even in second row coming along. So let's say you had a bad start here. You go to tack and duck, and now you've got, by the time you've done that, these boats are now here. If you have to duck this boat, you could think of it as a rabbit. You don't have to bear off, let your sail out, and round this boat like this. You can let your sail out and then pull it back in. Let this boat sail forward and duck them when they're here. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you're not the only boat here, this boat, if they sail towards the starboard boat and you luff, then when you come out, so this is later on after these boats have passed, you end up here and they end up here. If, on the other hand, you squeeze in and you don't let your sail out and you squeeze in down here, then this is option 1 where you let your sail off. Option 2 is you're still on the same ladder rung as them, but you're almost touching. You're very close. And in this case, you usually end up having to pinch. You end up getting lee-bowed by the other boat. So this option 2 is not as good. So thinking about the boat that you're trying to duck, whether it's a rabbit or a starboard boat, is moving, and you can sail up to the same speed as them. You can't sail faster than them usually. So you can either duck them early or duck them late, but that still keeps you on the same ladder rung, on the same perpendicular line to the wind. Whether you duck them later or duck them earlier, just determines your position laterally, your position sideways along the ladder rung. Maybe the last thing that I will say about it is don't sail slowly around the rabbet. Try to cross the rabbet at full speed, and also try not to cross the transom of the rabbet or the starboard boat in this case at this angle. If you're up here and you go and cross the rabbet like this, you're still heading up after the rabbet is passed. So that's not ideal. What you or even worse would be if you were sailing downwind past the rabbet. That might be more obvious. You waste all of this space. And if this is a rabbet start, you're vulnerable to any boats over here who would have leeward right of way over you. So instead, it's better to, if this boat's coming, to bear off early, and then this line wouldn't be so long because this boat's moving forward. But if you bear off early and then head up, then you can hit close hauled just as you cross their transom, and you might be able to get the puff of wind off the back of their sail to give you a little extra boost as you cross by the wind, as you cross by their transom. So you not only want to think of your speed, but you also want to consider, maybe I'll draw this, so this is port boats ducking a starboard boat, but if this is a rabbet here, as you approach the rabbet, you want to consider the angle that you're ducking the rabbet. Are you coming in too high and ducking the rabbet on a beam reach or even lower before you head up? Or are you able to kill your speed beforehand and already be on close haul by the time you cross behind the rabbet? So there are some things to think about with rabbet starts. You don't have to cross past the rabbet at full speed. It's dangerous to try to duck the rabbet right at the leeward mark if you're not sure the angle the boat's going to head up to. And it's dangerous to be too low, especially being below the line perpendicular to the wind that crosses through the mark that the rabbet rounds.